Yo, what's up? It's Randy. Hi. Sorry I've been so delinquent. It's probably been about 2 weeks since I've posted. I've just been really busy. I've been directing a bunch. I've been shooting a lot of drone stuff. All of it's been really good and exciting, just like total whirlwind, like running from this place to that and dealing with family stuff in between. And it's been challenging but super fun. The film continues. I've put a tentative I've put a tentative date in the books, which is November. And I'm kind of doing this just so that I have something to keep my eyes on. You know, when there's a date, I really kind of tend to move towards that. And if it's kind of like nebulous, shoot whenever we have, whatever we have, blah, 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 it really kind of doesn't feel as real. Whereas putting a date in the books kind of like really just puts the fire under my ass and really kind of makes me feel like I've got to make things happen. And I like that because I don't want to take forever on this project. I want to make a great project, put as much as I can possibly muster into it, and then move on, you know? Look, I believe in like a kind of romanticism to a certain degree. Like, this would be my first feature film. And I think that it's really important to kind of come off really strong. I also feel like I'm not the kind of person that's going to stick around and like let myself be put into development hell forever. It's just not what I want to do with myself or my career or anything. So I'm not trying to do that either. So I'm trying to like kind of dance a very specific and very careful dance between getting stuff done right, or getting it done at all. And it's only the not getting it done at all part that I really want to sidestep. I feel like there's never going to be a point where everything's going to be perfect. It's just not the nature of life. So even though I want to make the right decisions and I want to make the best decisions and I want to make perfect decisions, whatever that means, I am not willing to not make the film because it's not the perfect decision. I've already spent too long in my life not making feature films for a lot of different reasons. And one of them will not be because I'm being too perfectionistic about that. I don't really believe in perfectionism. I believe in things getting done the best they can possibly get done. I believe that art is inherently imperfect. I'm willing to debate that left and right and up and down, you know, but it's just been my experience. As somebody who's been making things my entire career, you can choose whether you like them or not, whether they're good or not, whatever their artistic value is. I can't debate that for you. I can only debate the fact that like I have done things that have been interesting to me, and that's what I continually want to do, is make things that are interesting to me and hopefully therefore others. But in my experience making those things, like perfectionism is like just nothing. You know, I mean, like you can spend forever tweaking something in post-production. You can spend forever being bogged down by, you know, kind of like perfectionist thoughts. I think perfectionism to me feels like a little bit like a crutch for people who don't want to make choices. And I don't like that. Once again, that can be debated, but so some things that have been happening recently, even in light of the fact that I've been really busy for the past couple of weeks, are I've had a meeting with my producer, Erin, and her head of production, this guy named Jeff, and he put together a very basic schedule, which was interesting to look at. It really made it really real for me. Because all of a sudden I'm looking at all these scenes that I wrote and I'm like, holy shit, making this thing is not going to be easy. And I'm totally down for that challenge. I love that idea. I like the fact that it's not easy because frankly, that's better for the piece. But it's also daunting to look at, you know, all the different scenes that there are, be like, holy shit, just shooting these things back to back, you know, kind of like is very intense and interesting to look at that. So that happened. We've been continuing to have discussions about budget. That's been interesting too. I actually just got off a call with a casting director, a woman named Sunday Kennedy, who's out in LA. And it was really, really long call, really interesting and really awesome. She obviously is super experienced, knows what she's doing. That was exciting. And, you know, kind of like testing some thoughts and throwing them her way. Like, I mean, was really interesting. See how they kind of like bounced off of her. So if I can post, you know, I recorded it, honestly. I recorded it more, not to be creepy, more so I could review it, because sometimes I want to go back and kind of review a meeting. And I'm going to actually ask her whether I can post it. It's an 80-minute long call. And I actually don't have a recording of her for that. So if she says yes, then I would like to post it and then maybe put like her picture of her or something. I don't know. I'll figure out some kind of creative, fun way to kind of like have her side of it. But ultimately, it was really interesting because, you know, as I go through this process as a beginner in the movie world, you know, I need to have my thoughts kind of like corrected and kind of like be put back on the road. I mean, not that I have to abide by any of the rules per se, because if I can make things work without that, without going by the Hollywood system, then nobody's going to stop me from doing any of that stuff. But, you know, there are ways that things happen and there are rules, you know, that can be broken, but there are rules in terms of the way that those things typically work. So it's really interesting to hear her perspective on casting and to get a better sense of like what actually goes on and how that whole process works, how long the process takes to happen. And I like that. You know, it's cool. It was all really interesting and exciting to have that discussion with her. And basically where I'm at is I'm going to send her my dream list. You know, names that most likely I wouldn't be able to get my hands on unless, you know, lightning strikes, and I'm not going to take that shit off the table. I'm just going to keep my dreams big. But she wanted to know what those names and thoughts were so that she can have a better idea of like, okay, cool, if we're shooting for a budget that's like $1 million or $2 million, it's totally different than if you're shooting for a $20 million budget. So I gave her those names, if you want to know. My main character, Jack, is a man in his mid-40s. I'm kind of imagining that as like a kind of like early 80s era Jack Nicholson. And then the main female character is in her early 20s. They are not a romantic couple. As I imagine, it's kind of like a young Natalie Portman. Or like a Haley Steinfeld, like kind of like somebody like that. And then I have another character that is kind of like a more senior character, somebody I'm imagining in their kind of like 60s or 70s, who, you know, can be like an Anthony Hopkins, rest in peace, like that, you know, kind of like type of person, like a person with that kind of gravitas. But I also can imagine it being as like a Tilda Swinton or an Emma Thompson would be phenomenal. It could be somebody that's like semi-androgynous. It could be a female. It could really kind of be anybody. I'm really kind of like open to that character and who that character can be. It doesn't need to be anybody in particular in terms of like male or female. It just has to be somebody with a certain kind of like gravitas to their personality. So I'm going to send that list and see what happens. Basically, we're going to kind of like retain her to do like an initial pass in terms of like who's realistic. So that way I feel like on my side, I can go in there and really kind of watch all the characters movies or a lot of their movies and kind of figure out like, okay, cool, can I really see these characters? You know, it'd also be interesting to just hear like, okay, who can she get to and what are the basic prices for those people, if we're doing that at the different levels, you know. And I think right now probably aim to do something in the $2 to $5 million range. So, you know, that's kind of where I'm at on that front. And then totally separately than that, I've mentioned this in the last one. When I was in San Francisco, I met with my buddy Eric Chang, who is at Meta. He is like one of the big movers in the VR world. He is like in charge of producing and moving a lot of the technology forward for the Oculus. You still call it the Oculus? It's the Meta Quest, I guess, now. So the Meta Quest and like the programming for that, he's like the producer behind all those, you know, like the Alex Honnold films. Eric's an amazing guy. I met him during my drone days. He was working at DJI at that time, and he came from Lytro, which was a really interesting camera company before then. Eric, I've mentioned this before, is total like super smart. It's just polymath, does everything at just such a high level. He's like, you know, he started a company called Wet Pixel back in the day, which I think is what got him into Lytro. And he started a community at Wet Pixel. I mean, he started Wet Pixel, but it's like Wet Pixel is a community of underwater photographers. And, you know, kind of like drones, underwater photography is one of those things where you have to be a polymath in order to do it. It's not just like pointing your iPhone at something. I mean, like the complexities of underwater photography are ridiculous. You know, just even the gear alone is ridiculous. And then understanding the dynamics of like kind of shooting underwater, which for those of you that don't know, I don't really even know either, but I know that it's like, you know, it requires tons of light. The gear is ridiculous for shooting underwater. You have to obviously be an extremely skilled diver, and that in and of itself is completely ridiculous and complex. And Eric is like somebody who is like phenomenal in that space. You know, he was like one of the people that, if you watch Netflix Masters of Light, he was one of the episodes, was all about him. And he like, you know, was like diving underwater with like anacondas and shit. I mean, just like crazy stuff, you know? And he continues to kind of like carry that torch at Meta, doing the things he's doing. I mean, like he's working with just like insane people. I don't want to like blow up his spot too hard because I don't know what he's mentioned to me. I would assume because he's smart, he wouldn't mention to me something that was like out of an NDA, but he's mentioned some people that were just absolutely crazy that he's working with. Anyway, one of the people that he introduced me to is a guy named Gino Acevedo, who is like the special effects guru behind every film. Just IMDb this guy. I mentioned this in my last video, but I actually have a call with him tomorrow night. He's in New Zealand. It took me 4 tries to try to even just figure out like when our call was, because he gave me a couple times, but I was like, you know, it's crazy to think about when that actually is my time. It's 16 hours ahead, by the way, in case you like doing that kind of math. I don't like doing that kind of math. I had a great conversation with ChatGPT about it, and I hope it works out. But anyway, I have a call with him tomorrow night at 11:30 New York time. And I'm hoping for a conversation that's going to be, you know, kind of like fun and illuminating and interesting in terms of just kind of like how to approach this kind of project. You know, my film is a sci-fi creature feature. It's like, it's got a lot of really interesting and weird elements in it. And I did that on purpose. I'm like, you know, I love science and I'm a big fan of nature films, and that, you know, kind of like being scientifically on point about this really is really important to me. And I'm hoping that he is inspired and, you know, kind of interested in the challenges that I've kind of written about. I don't know what kind of budget range. I'm going to find out what kind of budget ranges are even interesting or viable for somebody like him to work on. I am not sure that my project is in that kind of a range because he works on Lord of the Rings and like all these huge projects. So, you know, I'm not trying to be there to court him into making the film unless he's like super interested in it and it can be reasonable to actually have him involved. Then there are other aspects of it just on the pure finance side, which have to do with film finance and, you know, kind of like when it comes to film finance, you have to have a certain amount of your budget done in the place where you're getting your tax incentive from. But look, I mean, I'm not in the business right now of stopping myself from dreaming or meeting awesome people on any front. So if it really is just advice, great. If for some reason he wanted to do something more and was super interested in it, and we could make that work, then great. You know, I mean, like, I really feel like being a director, especially of the feature film, in the feature film world, from what I've seen, is kind of being a little bit more like a ringmaster. And what I want to do as a ringmaster for this particular project is bring the most talented people I possibly can to bring the best to the project and make it as interesting and awesome as possible. From what I know about being a director, from my experience in the commercial world, that's the story sometimes. But like on the creative side of this whole thing, that's what I really want. Like if my creative challenges totally turn him on and he's like, holy shit, that seems right up my alley, then who knows? Maybe we make this whole thing in New Zealand. I don't know. At this point, I'm not willing to rule anything out because at this point, it's really more about the most interesting choices that get this film made, however that happens, however the financing happens. I mean, like, that's ultimately what's going to happen. And I like that of it. And right now, it's really more about being the most exciting, fun, and dynamic ringleader to all these people. So that's where I'm coming from. By the way, I'm driving to Hershey, Pennsylvania right now to do a shoot. I can't really mention what the shoot is, but it's in Hershey, Pennsylvania, so you can kind of glean whatever that is. I'm shooting drone stuff on it, which is exciting and fun always because it's just a fun-ass job. So that's what I'm doing right now. And yeah, that's that. Onward and upward. This is a little bit longer than it's been in the past because so much has kind of gone on over the past couple of weeks. And I hope that as we get closer and closer to production that the things that I'm up to are kind of more interesting. And I think I'm going to start really kind of spending more time letting people know. Like, I'm going to try to shoot the meeting with Gino tomorrow. I'm going to ask him whether it's okay at the top of the meeting, and I'll shoot it and screen record it if he's down, because if I can show you that, then that'd be awesome. I mean, I feel like at its best, this can be a great, super interesting masterclass in making your first feature film or a feature film in 2025 on Earth, you know? And that would be fun, even if it's just for shits and giggles and people following along on any front, you know? So that's basically what I'm up to. I probably forgot something. But I know I had a list somewhere of like kind of words of wisdom also, but I feel like that was more along the lines of like what I would say if I kind of like didn't have like tons of updates, but this really is kind of tons of updates. So that's what's going on, and there are words of wisdom to come to, and that I think right now is kind of more about just like staying true to the creative vision and what's going on and keeping your head on straight. This is a really daunting thing to kind of be at the bottom of, you know, at the bottom of the hill and looking up, because there are a lot of things to be done and a lot of really crazy challenges. But if instead of looking at those challenges, the casting challenges, the effects challenges, the budget challenges, the money challenge, all those things. If instead of looking those things as daunting challenges, I can look at them as fun, creative challenges, then my world is going to be fun and enjoyable and awesome. And if I view them as daunting, annoying things, my life is going to be hell. And I'm not doing this because I want my life to be hell. I'm doing this because I want my life to be fun and I want my movie to be fucking awesome. I may have to beep that out. So that's the kind of angle that I'm going to kind of look at it from right now. And I will do my best to keep that mindset straight, you know, because this is a labor of love. And it will continue to be a labor of love because it's going to have to be. But also it's going to be a labor of business. It's got to be a business too, because once money and millions of dollars comes into it, so I'm going to have to figure that out as well and try to figure out how do I get this thing made and make it, you know, economically feasible where I'm not like taking other people's money and just flushing it down the toilet for no reason. I mean, like, people watch movies, people love movies, people are into this stuff. So there's no reason at all why this should not be economically viable. This is a monster movie. Sci-fi, horror, action-y, awesomeness, you know? There's no reason why this should not be totally viable and be able to do really well. So that's going to be a part of this too. So when I say labor of love, I guess the reason why I'm saying that is because when I say labor of love, I don't mean like I'm making an art piece that's like for the art house that is, you know, this is also business, and I want to keep my eyes on that prize because I want to be able to make money from this too. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't give a shit whether people think that there's something wrong with that. Like, I've made art from painting, I've made art in photography, I've made art in film, things that I've shot by myself, music videos that were just pure creative expression and fun. I was in bands for years. Like, you know, I'm not somebody who shies away from creative expression that does not cost money. But this one is. It costs a lot of money to make a film. It takes a ton of effort, and I have to be compensated for that because I have a car and mortgage payments and a daughter and a wife, and I'm not trying to be like some kind of bum who can't do that. And I'm tired of hearing those stories, God, about like all these stories about people not making money. Like, I got to figure out a way to do that. It's like, it just can't be, a not money-making process. It can't be, it's got to be something that can be economically feasible. And I'm going to figure out how to make that happen. So, keep positive. I'm going to keep positive. You keep positive. I hope you're watching and are taking something from this, find this interesting. Be well. And I'll see you on the next one soon.